Rocket Labs, which is like Rocket League's experimental playlist. So Rocket Labs was a thing like 6-9 months ago, maybe a year ago, where they had like some different maps and different game modes, and then they retired it because people weren't playing it enough. And now that we're hitting like 1 million concurrents every day, every weekend, they decided to bring it back because they realized that having one map and one pitch for your entire player base to play on for forever is just boring, and that people want different things to try. But then they also announced this stupid thing, which they have called player anthems. And the idea is that every time you score a goal, your anthem is going to play. And this is a feature nobody was asking for this. I don't know who came up with this. And it could potentially be one of the worst things they've ever put into the game. And I'm just hoping they give me a mute all button, because I definitely don't want to listen to your player anthem if you score 5, 6, 7 goals in a game. I'm playing you in 1v1s and it's like 11 to 10. I don't want to listen to your stupid song 11 times. Are you kidding me?
It reminds me of Counter-Strike. Like when they started, it used to do that in UT too, but at least in CS, I know you can turn it off.
Well, so but the thing is, like, I like the Easy for Ents song, okay? So, like, when I hear Easy for Ents, right, you just got the sick defuse, like, I'm okay with that. But it also bugs the shit out of me, so you're right. It is exactly the same thing as in Counter-Strike on the kill cam or whatever it's called. I don't have it.
But you think about all the memes that were born out of UT and all the sound clips that we now know are just like esports. They're meta now because they've been there for so long, and those sounds for Counter-Strike, I don't know if this is going to have that same effect, but it's got the potential to. But it's limited, right? It's limited to the library that Rocket League has available, right?
Yeah, my understanding is that it's only the Rocket League in-game soundtrack songs, which are primarily Monster Cat songs. So in the world of DMCA and all that stuff going on, I think there's some obvious issues with like, oh, just load up a Spotify song and that'll be your anthem, right? So in theory, it's things they've already cleared. But again, they haven't released it yet. They haven't released like the full details. So I guess it's, I don't know, maybe there's some opportunities for like, custom, like YouTuber or like streamer specific like community packs. Like that could be kind of a cool thing, actually. Maybe I'm a little bit more optimistic than I like, but I just fucking enjoy it.
But if you're a developer though, like you don't build in this feature without a mute button, right? You just don't.
I mean,
you don't do that, right?
You hope so. You mean maybe you pay to mute?
Like surely, well, I mean, yeah, okay, but surely like this lesson has been learned somewhere already.
I hope so. Psyonix has a history of doing the right thing. Sometimes it just takes them a very long time to do it. So yeah, hopefully they build that mute button.
Is there a mute all button for the chat functionality in the game?
Yeah, you can mute all.
Okay.
You can mute
So at least they have that there. So you're getting closer to being able to like mute all communication, but.
Yeah, and the good news is that like the in-game voice chat has been so broken from day one that nobody uses it, and it's just permanently muted by everyone. So we're already muting the in-game voice chat that doesn't work. So yeah, is there a
paywall for the tracks that you get to like, go out there and have be your anthem? Interesting.
I'm sure some player anthems will end up in the in-game microtransaction shop for sure.
Yeah, like that whole streamer pack you were talking about, but like. I wonder, and they get more license for more songs, and then it gets to be even more messy of a DMCA issue. You can play it for your anthem, but you can't play it on your Twitch streams, so no anthems for you.
Yeah, but you know what you can play on your Twitch stream is episode number 8 of Theorycrafting. So welcome everyone. You like that segue? Welcome to the show, episode 8, the week after Thanksgiving. Hope everyone ate tons of food, had a great virtual or limited physical contact with your families, however you decided to celebrate. And welcome back to another week, Theorycrafting, where we talk about the games industry, talk about where we're going, why we're going there, and try to come up with some cool theories about maybe what the future holds for us. So on this episode, we're going to be talking about the economics of the video game space. We're going to be dabbling into a little bit of Fortnite, a little bit of some data, some studies that have come out, really just talking about games as a whole and kind of the impact they're making on our society, on our globe, and kind of see where the conversation goes from there. So without further ado, I want to say a quick thank you to our sponsors. First and foremost, Blue Microphone, Shot Call GG, and Aber Media. couldn't do this show without you, and we appreciate the support. And I'd like to also make sure I welcome my two fabulous co-hosts for the episode. Returning as always, we have Kyle, aka the Real Gizmo, over there on the far left. And in the middle, we are joined by none other than the man himself, Mr. I'm trying to put my thing in frame. I'm going the wrong way. I don't know. I'm trying to point to him. I don't know what direction he is. Mr. Steve Sampson at SS Sampson with 0. Steve, how are you doing, my friend?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me on, guys. Happy to be here.
Well, you know, it's great to have you, Steve. You're a pretty integral part in our lives and our sailing for Sea of Thieves lately. So, you know, it's nice to have another crewmate on the show and
catch us on the server Tuesday night. Beware, if you get sunk, it's probably us.
Yep, probably us. We'll be memeing you up with soundboards and all.
No, but happy to join you guys. And just for everyone out there, you know, I'm Steve. I work for ESL Gaming in the DreamHack space, and I'm an operations and logistics manager. So this space is of particular interest to me, for sure. So
yeah, and so Steve, like as a ops and logistics kind of guy, like what does that entail? Just at a really high level? Is it like managing budgets and like managing people, or kind of just like what does it mean, and what do you actually do as a logistics person? Any
and all of the above, right? So there's definitely multi-million-dollar budget management going on, and then we're talking order procurement. So the equipment that we own, the equipment we have to rent, the equipment we buy. Heavy equipment, so whatever we need to build the show for you guys. So forklifts, cherry pickers, scissor lifts, cranes, sometimes you name it, we do it.
800 tables.
Yeah. Tables, chairs, we put it all together, and I'm part of the team that actually in a very much concise way builds the show, and that's everything from tables and chairs, like Kyle said, to stage and AV, managing all of that, and really building the festival from the ground up.
It's super important.
It really is. I remember when we started all of this, we were like what, a couple trucks? How many trucks did we have at our last show?
9 full trailers from our warehouse to and from Anaheim. So yeah,
it's a lot. It's a lot of stuff that you manage and make sure that we all have. Without what you do, we don't have a show. It really is just that simple. So we're always appreciative of the wonders that Steve makes happen.
Appreciate it.
Super important. Now, before we get into the show, I got one more question for you, Steve. What is going on with that flag behind you and that what looks to be like some sort of face that seems to be appearing?
Yeah. So the elephant in the room. I bring my Canadian friends and brethren with me always, and Simon, he actually works with us. He's president of DreamHack Canada, one of my colleagues, and we got his face printed on a Canadian flag. It's actually a shower curtain, but I feel a little weird having it in the bathroom, so it's up on the wall. But he's with me always, so
watching over you while you sleep.
Oh
yeah,
man.
he does.
I can't even handle that. I know that guy on your flag.
Yeah, he should look familiar. So yeah.
Soon we'll see that flying over the different provinces of Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, soon TM. Yeah. Soon TM. All right, so let's get back into it. So to wrap up the Rocket League conversation real quick, because it ties in nicely with the Epic Games and kind of the discussion of economics. So one of the other things that they're doing in this Rocket League update is that they're actually refreshing the esports shop, right? So Rocket League had a very half-assed attempt at putting in-game esports like decals and icons and player banners and things that you can like trick your car out to rep your favorite team. So they like launched this a couple seasons ago, and basically they have got a bunch of teams in there that no longer compete in Rocket League. They can still buy their decals, and they've got teams that are like popping off and super popular that they have no decals. It seems like they're taking a second look at that esports shop and actually trying to figure out a way to like make it a little bit more accessible. So I love seeing games like actually bring their competitive players and teams and tournaments and systems like into the game, so fans can like rep their team, right? I think that it's like a really positive thing. It's like, so I'm just really happy to see that they're taking another stab at that, and I would love to know the revenue figures on what that kind of stuff generates and how it splits back to the teams. But never gonna learn that unless I get some insider info.
Hit us up, by the way. Hit us up. No.
hit us up. So in other news, Kyle, there's a little bit of I don't know if you want to call this drama, but there's something that leaked out about Fortnite recently regarding your boy Master Chief, huh? Why don't you tell the people what's going on with Master Chief?
This is pretty weird. There's some leaks of a Fortnite collaboration between 343 and Epic there, and it looks like you're going to be able to play as Master Chief and ride on a pelican and warthog throughout the lands of Fortnite. So I'm very confused as to how this is going to work, because last I checked, Microsoft owns all of that, and they're pretty like Xboxy, not PlayStation-y. They're PC, so you'll probably get that there, but I don't know how this is going to roll out. But this is all just kind of like exploded out of a fire hose of leaks today around all of this. So really curious to how this will actually be executed at the end of this.
That's a good point. Am I going to be able to see Master Chief on my PlayStation?
Is that just the next level of marketing that they went to on this? Is that they want to have Master Chief running around on PlayStations?
I just don't see this like from Microsoft's side. Like, I don't get it. But I don't play Fortnite, but if I did, that's the skin I would want. So I'm all for it, actually.
I mean, they've collabed with everybody else so far, except for like Supreme, which is funny that the collab god has not collabed with the other collab god in our gaming space. But Star Wars, Marvel, NFL are some of the big ones, to name a few, and this Master Chief one. I mean, it looks like they're all official. It looks like they're all going to happen, and the fact that you can just grab that pelican glider and glide on down as Master Chief just looks kind of funny for me as a person that likes the lore of Halo a bit and like what Halo offers. But if it's a way to bring Halo to the next generation, I think that's something that they're looking for to build up some momentum to get into Infinite right now, because they kind of need it.
So Kyle, my understanding was that you were a little perturbed by this, though. I thought you were disappointed. Like, I want to dig into why. Because from my perspective, I'm kind of all in on this. I think this is again, Fortnite is just on the cutting edge of just breaking all the rules and reinventing the game. And getting Master Chief running around on a bunch of PlayStations is just love it.
I think they're teaming up against Apple.
Yes,
could be it.
100%.
Could.
I 100% agree with that assessment there, because Microsoft actually came out in support of Epic a couple months ago when this whole debacle was getting started. And there's a lot riding on the line for Microsoft, because Sea of Thieves is even made on Unreal. So there's a lot of different content that doesn't get to exist on the Xbox if something bad happens to Epic, or if Unreal starts to suffer because Apple's being the big bully on the playground is what it's being perceived as, and the two gaming underdogs are coming together to go fight Big Daddy Apple now. Happens to be Microsoft and Epic, two of the well-equipped ones out there. But if it is starting with a collaboration to have Master Chief, one of the most iconic characters that they have access to in their entire IP, yeah, I think it makes sense on paper. Do I like it as a Halo fan? Absolutely not. I think it's making Master Chief look like a dipshit, but that's...
He's a purist. only in Halo can Master Chief exist.
If they wanted to go back to the original Halo, go back to CE and put him in there. I saw a statue the other day of the first show that Halo was at being displayed, and the statue of the Master Chief that they had was just as pixely as he looked on the original Xbox. So I want to see that in Fortnite more than I want to see this Halo Infinite Master Chief in there.
I guess I should have known, just knowing your background in Halo, that you'd have this perspective that Master Chief can only be in Halo. But don't you think that it's a great way to reach a new segment of fans that maybe have never played Halo before, and who is this Master Chief guy, and what is this Warthog thing? This thing's rad.
I definitely think that if I had a 10-year-old kid right now, that would be the easiest way to break them into that, if they didn't know about it already. But I probably would have put CE in their hands far before they had access to a computer. So I don't know, maybe this doesn't even make sense to me. But if it does help connect and ask that question to dad, what's fucking Halo? Kid, yep, this is Master Chief. He flies this pelican around and fucks up these grunts and the elites and things over there on the Halo rings. Okay, if it gets the question started, maybe that's a good thing, but maybe I don't want I don't want my Halo experience ruined by a bunch of younger kids coming in. I mean, maybe that's where I'm getting to stay off my lawn-esque if we're getting all the way down to this problem.
How many Halo players you think see this now and be like, oh, I'm gonna go play Fortnite? Like,
Ninja?
probably
Ninja?
not many, right?
I mean,
like, I don't know. Probably not many.
y'all know Ninja is going straight back to Fortnite for like a week straight just to play as Master Chief, just given his roots. Right?
Was that the last bit of his Mixer contract that's still in there somewhere, that he has to go play as Master Chief in Fortnite for a little while?
Well, that's like one of the biggest bummers about Mixer imploding is that we knew that they were going to leverage Ninja on like some Halo esports like marketing IP or something, and that whole thing's gone. So, well, I guess I'm speculating that was going to happen, but it just made a lot of sense. But yeah, hopefully we can see Ninja rock Master Chief.
And is this going to be something that you have to buy in the game? Like, I assume it will be. Or is this going to be just something that if you're playing on the Xbox Series S or X that you just get?
100% for sure you're going to have to buy it.
If you're on a PC, yeah. But if you're on an Xbox Series S or X, then...
Oh.
There was special sales in Sea of Thieves for only Series X and Series S people. I don't even have them, and I'm sad because it looks cool.
Yeah, you stick out, but they look cool.
Yeah, you stand out like a sore thumb, but you
glow
look cool.
Neon green, but you look cool.
It'd be kind of cool if you owned Halo, you got it for free in Fortnite.
I mean, I could see some things like that happening. Last time I checked, Fortnite wasn't on Game Pass. Like, it's not a Game Pass game, right? It's just on there as free because it's a free game. But
free to play.
Like, what if you have Game Pass and you have Fortnite, and now Fortnite's on Game Pass, free to play there as well? Is Epic gonna look to like branch out and go to these kind of neutral grounds since they're pissed off at an Apple?
Well, it doesn't have to be in Game Pass though, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, exactly right. Because like, I think Epic is trying to drive people into their ecosystem. So like, why would they drive people into Xbox's ecosystem? This is why they're releasing all these free games on the Epic Game Store, and they're, that's why they moved Rocket League to the Epic Game Store.
Yeah.
And that's I don't know. Maybe it goes to Fortnite. But
imagine that combo power. The Epic Store and Game Pass. Is that a world that you want to live in, Mitch?
Kinda.
I'm actually starting to like the Epic Game Store a lot more.
Really?
Like, where else can you go and get three free games a month?
That's a good point.
I mean,
it used to be games with gold on Xbox Live, but
like,
I guess the answer to your question is you go to Xbox Game Pass because I get like 115 games for free.
Not for free.
Oh, sorry.
Not for free.
For $10 a month.
You're right.
But I just think they all. I mean, Steam's always going to be my favorite for sure. But I don't like any of them. Like you play Origin. Don't get me started on Origin. We could reschedule this podcast to talk about Origin.
Okay, which one's worse, Uplay or Origin?
Origin for sure, 100%.
Why? You gotta back up your opinions on this podcast. So why?
I've just had the most problems with Origin. I've just had the most problems with files downloading. Like anything that could possibly go wrong with a launcher, I've had. Like, it's just like yeah.
And they had one of the like original Game Pass models too attached to that with with their Origin Gold and being able to play all the EA games on there. That was like the precursor to it in so many ways.
I don't even remember, like, besides Battlefield, why people play. I don't even know what's on Origin besides Battlefield.
The Sims is a great game on there if you're looking for something to occupy some time. The other one was Jedi Fallen Order was the last game that I played on there, I believe, and that was well worth the play. But now it's on a lot of other platforms and not worth subscribing for $15 a month to play all of just the EA games. Which is now built into Game Pass, or is going to be. I don't remember if it's out yet for that, but I knew they were adding some of those features into Game Pass as well and kind of building that power behind that. This is a Game Pass podcast is ultimately what we've turned this thing into over the past 8 episodes.
Yeah,
so
we're trying really hard to break our Game Pass addiction, but it can't happen.
We were talking about Fortnite, and we still dragged it back to Game Pass somehow.
That's funny. So Captain Cool in the chat, yes, they are. This was leaked today. They are adding Master Chief to Fortnite. So this is kind of leaking news. Don't exactly know how it's happening or when or why, but that's the rumor on the street from somebody who's got some cred. So big sad or big win depending on your perspective. Something else that they're bringing into Fortnite, right? Because the economics of games are not just about money; they're about like technology and innovation and like moving the bar. And I think Epic's doing a really good job of this with Fortnite. So something else they're bringing in, which I'd love to hear both your take on, is is this something you'd use, and is this even groundbreaking? In-game video chat into Fortnite. So the idea is like, I'm partied up with you two, we're playing Fortnite. I can get your faces right there on my monitor. I just have to link up my my Epic account with whatever proprietary tech they bought, and boom, there's your face. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Who wants to go first?
My instant reaction is I've grown up playing public lobbies with not the mute all function being added for my entire life. So when you get into those lobbies and mom comes yelling in behind whoever's little shit's up there trying to play this game right then and there, and she's screaming, "Have you done your homework tonight? Come eat dinner, clean your room." Now you're gonna get to see mom, and is mom gonna be ready for that? Is the best part.
I love it, but it's only good if it works out that way. And like, the thing is, I don't know what the statistics are. Wow, statistics are, but the average age of a Fortnite player is what? I mean,
not old enough to be on their own.
Younger, right?
Yeah.
Think about all those times that you were in these lobbies with nobody muted and all the crap you heard. Do you really want to be looking at someone's gooch like when you log in? Like, that's all I'm saying is like, I can only imagine what these people are gonna do with their cameras on Fortnite.
So I think the stipulation here is that it's like I see my friends only. I don't think it's like a public thing. I hope it's not a public thing.
We know how the young mind can work.
I'm just saying.
It's not just gonna be young boys, young girls. Everybody's gonna be doing this kind of thing. I imagine you log into Fortnite and you're just like, yeah, it's the new Snapchat. We got this. Because this just seems like it's enabling all of the terrible things that you don't want to have happen on the internet, specifically to an underage demographic.
Yeah, but it could be a really cool first date. Hey, babe, you want to go drop in fucking Twisted Meadows and look at me longingly while I
got my Master Chief helmet on?
I don't know, with the Master Chief helmet on and my Packers flag coming out my backpack. Duh.
Do we know what the HUD's gonna look like? See, that would be the interesting part for me, is like, where are they gonna put this?
So the mock-ups I saw was like kind of on the left. It's like a 1/6 sidebar on the left, and then like the game is like 5/6 on the right, basically. Maybe it's customizable, but that was the screenshot.
When you're talking about 20-inch, 20 to 7-inch monitors, like having that little bit of your monitor removed to have a couple of pictures on the face, it's innovative. It really is. It's super cool in that sense, and especially as you push up into 4K graphics. You don't need all 4K pixels for Fortnite to be admired in all of its glory. So you just shave off 1,000 pixels on the side, and you have that whole little side interface that you could build into. That is cool tech. I just think it's not going to be applied right.
Yeah, I think imagine it'll wind up looking like the esports overlays we see, with like the profile pictures on the left or right.
God, I hate like the stupid player cams where you just see you see the top of their forehead because the cameras aren't pointed in the right way.
Yeah, exactly like that though. Yeah,
you're right.
Just a lot of forehead gaming real quick.
Isn't that like the worst part of esports broadcast, by the way? Just real tangent. Like, what value are those stupid face cams really adding? I don't know.
None.
I don't like them.
It's been interesting watching them from at home, because more and more productions have added the at-home cameras for the players as well. I mean, I feel like it's a little bit of a verification that they're the one actually playing, for one, and two, the fans want to see the players. But they all have different angles and different scenes, and it's just like the most chaotic thing in the world, because we're used to seeing nice step and repeat behind them normally in the top of their head as they're playing vigorously. It's so weird seeing the different backgrounds now and what potentially is behind someone, and I just feel like there's so much not thought through again about something that Epic is adding to a game, that it's going to have repercussions far beyond anything they ever thought. And you're talking about the most played game on the planet. You're talking about the most potential for problems. And
I didn't think about that.
Did this get tested pretty well? Did they give this to like the internal group and say, all right, we got 100,000 people to play this game, and give it a good old test? And they're probably the most responsible. They probably have a clean room behind them and a quiet environment to test it out in, not real life playing wherever you can with the living room and the background noise and all the other shit that comes along with just life. So yeah, the memes from this are going to fill TikTok for decades.
I don't even really like being on video calls for business purposes, let alone like a video call while I'm playing a game with my friends. Like, I know what you look like. I don't need to see your face. Like, it's just isn't for me. But I love the innovation.
My brother started doing that recently when we've been sailing on the seas. He's been throwing up his camera.
That's actually a good point. I actually did enjoy seeing his face.
It is nice to see you guys and to be able to interact that way. But am I doing that while I'm gaming? Not to the point where I really make it a thing. And even to like Lyric's defense, he doesn't even show himself on stream, and he's still popular on stream. So you don't have to have that. So it is interesting to wonder what was the motivation from Epic's side to include a FaceTime feature in their game.
Yeah, I don't think that it's anything that like, you know, Lyric's a good example, because I think you can definitely. I mean, we all gamed for years without cameras, right? So before there were any good ones anyway. But I think we were talking about this, I think, before the show started, Kyle, but I think for me, you know, especially now that we've gone through so much this year and so much, whether it's quarantine, lockdown, you know, travel restrictions, or you just staying at home yourself to be safe. And, you know, speak for myself, I haven't traveled since February, you know, like, so, and I have a job that I travel all the time, you know, all the time. Sometimes it's just nice to, like, you know, be playing a game and see someone else's face, you know, like just some semblance of normal human interaction, I think is what a lot of people are after right now. So I think that, like, would I use it? Probably not, but I think it's a really interesting move from Epic right now.
If I don't get to go to a LAN party in like the next 3 or 4 months, you're gonna see me with like 8 monitors on either side of me, just with different people's faces on them, so I feel like I have people around me.
We got a nice comment here. I love this idea of attending your corporate meetings as a VTuber, by the way. Shout out there. So maybe we could get some like VTuber inspired cams in Fortnite, huh? Maybe we get that tech going.
That makes more sense, because I could see it totally looking like your avatar and your camera too. That makes total sense. Let's bring Ready Player One.
The purpose though, right? Like
it
the
does.
whole point is the person behind the character. Now I'm just seeing your avatar. It's sour.
It's so backwards, but that's where we've ended up with Twitch, so why not be able to be totally anonymous again?
All right, so we talked about Master Chief, talked about in-game video chat. There's two more things. There's two more things on the economic side that Fortnite's on. So number one, they've moved their their battle pass system, right? So they do like every season they have a battle pass that you work through, and it used to be that you pay like a flat fee to get like the premium version. They've actually moving that to a subscription model. So like $10 a month for your Fortnite subscription gets you a battle pass, gets you 1,000 V-Bucks, and it gets you like exclusive skins. And Kyle, this actually reminds me of the question you posed to me a couple weeks ago about the Riot Games skin pass, which I basically said, yes, maybe no, I don't know. I really want the KDA skins. I kind of like this idea of like a season pass that gives you exclusive skins, but what I like about this is that you keep the skins, right? You don't lose the skins. So I think this is an interesting development. I wonder if more games companies are going to follow suit with this idea of like a monthly sub. You know, I guess we're back in WoW world though.
Yeah,
again, right?
That's where my brain instantly goes though, is that I had to pay $15 a month if I was paying monthly, or, you know, you boil it down to whatever, like 12 that it was if you paid 6 months at a time. And I had to buy the expansion, and I had to go grind the 1,000 hours to get the loot I wanted out of ICC because it didn't fucking drop the first 12 times I did it. So like, this just feels like kids are being handed shit for playing video games now, and if you pay them $10, you get free stuff. Like, I had to go work for the stuff I got in WoW. This is fucking ridiculous.
I think that's exactly why they'll be successful, because it's like much more instant gratification, right? Yep. Like, there is one singular reason that I don't play WoW anymore, and that is because it is a never-ending pit of grind horror garbage, right? Like, you are never ever done with that game, and I think that that's really great if that's how you want to spend all your hours, right? But I just remember like starting playing in Burning Crusade, and I remember like hitting level 60, and maybe I'm just on, maybe I'm good. Yeah, dude, like maybe I'm just like on the wrong timeline. Like I need to get into an alternate timeline, because every time I would hit max level, like X pack, you know, like immediately after, right? Or what feels like immediately after, right? So you know, the average WoW player is never in. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but the average WoW player, are you ever fully decked out in endgame gear?
If you're in method, normally you will be.
Right?
To be ready for the next raid.
The average player is not.
No.
But
Right.
Eventually you get to a point where you're like, yes, this stuff's good enough.
So it's just kind of like, you know, you're never hitting that point where you're like, oh wow, I've got the best, and then, you know, every however many months you're like, actually that's not good at all anymore, and by the way, you have another 20 levels to grind, you know, and you're paying for that $15 a month, by the way, for that, just so you know.
And they're charging 10 for skins.
Not even gear, just cosmetics.
And V-Bucks.
Which is
The
pretty
V-Bucks
much...
are cool. I like the
Yeah.
idea of like V-Bucks, though, right? I'm giving you 10, so I'm getting some currency, and I'm getting a premium pass. I think there's real value there, actually, if you're to do the math.
What I didn't like about WoW is that when I was paying that subscription, I felt obligated to play that game. With a battle pass, which pretty common. I think it was like PUBG that really started doing that stuff a couple years back now. With the battle pass, I felt good that if I knew that I was playing that game a lot, like for sure, I'll dump that in. I'm gonna get some levels in this thing, and I'll make some progress there. I did it with Call of Duty a couple times. I like that model a lot more than just the loot box roulette that we were given a few years before that. But I feel obligated to make it through that battle pass. TFT, I feel obligated to make it through those for sure. And I don't like feeling tied down to a game like that.
Yeah.
That if I'm going to have to subscribe, that I lose my money if I don't play that month, essentially. So they are in a pretty lucrative spot, I think, with how many people play Fortnite right now and how many people may dump some money into the game. But, you know, you made one skin a month here. Maybe there's some people a little bit more skins, but I bet you they did the math and figured out that $10 is a pretty sweet spot for how much people are willing to spend versus the value that they're going to give them, being somewhere around like, oh yeah, you would have normally spent $25. Still cost us about jack shit to make these things, but you're going to pay $10 a month for that subscription and feel obligated to play this game on top of it.
$10 is definitely the sweet spot.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, Game Pass, $10.
And
But
Netflix is, it's like 13 now. But
Yeah, it is.
But what you've just described is like every subscription service of all time, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
there is an underlying, like they can say it's not, and they want the metrics and whatever, but the underlying wish would be like if everyone subscribed to WoW, but nobody played.
Yeah. Because, I mean,
Like-
servers aren't even full at that point. You're not even using power. It's great.
I mean, raise your hand if you've ever had a gym subscription you didn't use. All right, like
for
so
those
they
of you that aren't watching, we all raise our hands.
yeah, exactly. Like we've all done it, right? And I can't tell you how many months I paid for WoW and didn't play, but plenty, for sure.
Yeah, I played all the months I subbed.
No,
Yeah, I definitely did not pay for a month I didn't play, even when I hated every minute of it. Like, it's my most recent experience of resubbing. But I'm getting the itch again. Kyle talked me off the resub train recently.
Yeah, he was about to relapse, and I
were
caught him.
you?
Oh, so close.
Dude, it's been a while since I've been in WoW, but I think now it's just kind of like I'm so out of it and not even caught up that I don't know that I want to start.
This one goes out to our friend Chris Dalton. Rest in peace, man. You're
Is he playing?
back into the WoWs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see you whenever we see you, Chris.
Yeah. That and Eve Online, he's on. So.
Eve's a good one too. I never got into Eve, but I'm really intrigued by the whole economies of Eve. I think it's really fascinating. Actually,
Yes, it is.
really fascinating. So speaking of spending money on games that maybe you're not actually playing, there's been some interesting studies come out recently about the kind of the economic impact of games. So I want to transition the conversation to some big numbers and talk about how do games actually impact the economy, what do we see there, and how big is it, right? So Kyle, I know you know the answer to this question, but I'm gonna blindside Steve with this and see if he can get it close. So Steve, in 2019, so last year, because obviously this year is still going on, we don't know, in the United States, so not globally, in the United States, what would you say the total economic impact of video games was? And caveat, this includes like, employment and taxes and
And
jobs and like revenue. It's just like the total economic impact. It's not just about like game revenues. It's about like how much you think the sector impacts the economy. Ballpark.
Oof. Like, I don't want to sound ridiculous. That's the thing. It's like, I think it's such a high number that I'm going to way overshoot. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought you just said I thought you just said you had a number.
I know. Like,
Come on, Steve.
3 billion.
Well, you're off by about an order of magnitude. So a little bit bigger. So 100 billion in the US. Or 90 billion in the US.
Uh,
I wanted to say a trillion at first, but I was like, yeah, I don't know about
Price is
that.
Right rules, you would have won.
Yeah, so in prices, you're good in prices, right?
Yeah, it's like building a dollar.
That. So 100 or 90 billion dollars. This number kind of blew my mind a little bit. It was like way higher than I would have anticipated. I think the most. That's a lot. I think 3 is a lot as well, but the 90 billion is impressive. I think the most impressive part of this study from the Entertainment Software Association is that there's actually about 430,000 jobs in America that are sort of like impacted by games, with like around 140,000 of those being like directly in the industry. So this is like developers and retail and hardware and esports. It's like games have like very rapidly become a very important economic segment, and almost 500,000 people that are like working in and around tangentially the industry is a huge number.
It really is. And I know you and I are from states that rank number 1 and 2 on that list of overall economic impact. California being number 1, Washington being number 2. But there's, 40,000 jobs in Washington that are directly tied to the video game industry, which when you look at it, like, I will proudly say this is video game mecca. If anyone wants to challenge me there, I'll come down to California and kick your ass, Mitch. But it is a big mecca up here. We've got Nintendo, we've got Microsoft, we've got Bungie, we've got Valve, we've got some of the biggest besides the other biggest that are down in California, essentially. So there is a lot of economic activity around the West Coast in general, which is just really cool to see. I love seeing that we make up, what is it, like half or more of all of that. But it's interesting to see where else trickles in behind that. I think Texas was number 3 on that list, and Texas is not one that I really think of, but when you look at Austin, they really are a huge city for video game development as well. And I think they're one of the places that you don't give enough credit to at the end of the day. But it's scattered. It's not just as focused on the West Coast as it used to be. There's a lot of different places across the U.S. in general that are benefiting from the video game industry in great ways.
You've got, who is it? Atlanta. You got High Res.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they do Smite, Paladins.
Yeah, they're not a small studio by any stretch. They're a very large company. But you think about the powerhouse that is down in the Santa Monica area of California, or the Santa Ana area of California, all just south of Los Angeles. It really did become one of the primary spots for video game development for a long time. And there's so many jobs down there that all revolve around the video game industry.
Yeah, and something like half of like the total economic impact, so that 90 billion number, something like 50 billion of that is in California. And I think that just speaks to the density and volume of publishers. I mean, Riot is 3 minutes from my house, right? I walk by Riot pretty frequently. And you got all the major publishers, Blizzard, you got Rockstar, you got all the big boys. I'm sure Nintendo's got an office here. I'm sure like Valve probably has an office here in some regard.
Even PUBG Corp down there in Santa Monica.
PUBG's right down the street. Yeah, so like the LA area is definitely popping off. I was actually really surprised that Washington ranked so highly, though. I guess I'm sleeping on the PNW a little bit.
Yeah, it also depends on how you measure a lot of this, and it makes me curious because Nintendo and Microsoft you can count everything here because it's here. But Nintendo, then you look at Amazon, they're getting their foot wet in this industry even more with some big titles that they're putting in there, and then Twitch on top of that with $1 billion acquisition a couple years back. that's all energy focused in and around here, and then down into San Francisco a lot as well. But a lot of that's still cul-de-saced up here.
Wasn't Amazon? Didn't they unrelease a game?
They did. They did. Yeah.
Okay.
They spent a lot of money, and then they unreleased it, and then just like killed it completely.
I just wanted to refresh my memory. I thought that was them. But...
Yes, it was.
Was that Crucible? Is that called Crucible?
That sounds like Crucible, yes.
Yes.
New World is the one that's going to succeed and be my new WoW. I'm going to be happy to play that one until I'm worn out of it. But yeah, there's a lot of the bigger companies that are getting into this that you're going to see like that impact change even, I think. Overwatch League is a great example of bringing more gaming energy to markets that would have never seen it. And that's one of the things that I love about the regionalized model is Overwatch and Call of Duty are kind of getting force-fed to these markets, whether they liked it or not, because there's a lot of money on the line for these franchises. When you have
this guy's
that much,
over here hawking his city-based esports again.
I love it. I love it. I want more of it. It's one of my favorite things to see. But Philadelphia had some energy, but not as much as they do now with the fusion there. Houston, lots of energy around their Overwatch team. It's enough to say that there is an economic impact in those cities from video games. Whereas before, you'd have been like, yes, they bought a console here, and someone at a GameStop has a job because of that. Now there's other data that's coming into that.
I don't see how Overwatch League is profitable.
I don't think I said anything about that, but
no, I'm just throwing that one out there too. Like, you can have, I think it's great, don't get me wrong. Like, I love to see competitive Overwatch. I think the issue with competitive Overwatch is more to do with just in general the way the game is designed and how it's hard to observe, and it's extremely hard to explain that game to anybody who's never played it and like played it at a somewhat competitive level, right?
Yeah.
There's so much going on at the same time that you don't have the time to break it down as a commentator or an analyst. So I think it poses its own issues, but like, I love the game, but like, I don't know what they're doing with Overwatch League. Like, long term, what are we doing?
Yeah, and I think that nobody is trying to claim that Overwatch League is profitable by the definition of the word, just based upon kind of what's floating around there. But I do think that we all want to see it succeed, and you can succeed without being profitable, right? Like that. The end game is not always about money, but unfortunately, the dirty little secrets of esports is that lots of these esports companies are not profitable, and they're not running good businesses, right? So I think that's what's interesting about this idea of like $90 billion of impact in the country, is that most of that is driven by like publishers and retail outlets like GameStop or other places that are selling hardware, consoles, accessories, games, hardware companies that are actually making the stuff, right? It's not like esports is making this huge dent of this economic impact yet, right? I think esports is probably, without knowing the numbers, I think esports is probably detracting from the numbers in some regards.
Oh, for sure.
Kyle's shaking his head.
Yep, I pushed a button again. I'm sorry. We're good.
That's okay. Is that why you're shaking your head?
Yep.
Because you push a button on
Yeah,
accident?
because I pushed a button on accident.
Yeah, good. So, I mean, I guess maybe from the perspective of like esports driving tourism to cities, like producing jobs and things, that's a positive side of it. But also you have investment dollars and potentially costs and expenses that are kind of coming out the other side. So this report doesn't specifically break it down like esports as a segment, at least that I saw in the 60 pages that I skimmed pretty quickly.
What was the number last that I saw? Like esports is somewhere between like 1 and 2 billion right now, as far as like a value goes for our whole industry. Aside from like the Overwatch League explosions, like these are.
Well, I mean,
that's where I got my number from.
Depends on what numbers you're talking about.
Yeah, you know.
Where are we talking? Regional or U.S. global? Come on now.
Yeah, but either way, it's dwarfed by the overall energy that is gaming. Like almost 100 to 1, it is dwarfed. So it has an impact, and it will start to drive more interest and more penetration into these markets. And that's really what I think it is driving penetration further and further into these markets at a local level. But it's probably not measured in any real way right now.
Yeah, so I think the number you're looking for like the global, what is it, like the global games market is somewhere around 165 billion, right? So it's like the most profitable entertainment sector, something. So I guess the question is, right, so 165 billion dollars now, what does it take for us to get to a trillion? Ooh. And how long does it take?
Ooh. So I think I saw someone say something about within the next 5 years, we're going to be tipping over that quarter of a trill. Sorry. Not used to talking about trillions of dollars. Quarter trillion for gaming, which seems like manageable growth overall. That doesn't seem too far-fetched from what we're doing right now. I mean, mobile gaming alone was valued at what, 80 billion?
Yeah, so the revenue breakdown was 85 billion of that 160 was mobile, so it's like half basically is mobile, and then the other two being PC and console kind of split the other half. So it's like 25%, 50, 25% basically.
Okay. Yeah, so I think with mobile gaming still having markets to emerge into, that mobile number is going to be half for a long time. Looking at the PC number and realizing that PC is so much more expensive to get into than it is to get into console.
Yep.
I mean, my graphics card costs more than both of the consoles combined, and that wasn't even really trying that hard. I know people that dwarf my build completely. So
humble brag?
I mean, it was, yes, a little bit of a humble brag.
Weird flex, but okay.
Yeah,
weird flex.
A little bit. But it is a little bit more commitment and economic energy to get into the PC side of gaming, and it's not as accessible to everyone. And I think that's what we're seeing, is that mobile is so accessible that that's going to be the driving force behind a lot of this growth. Because without mobile gaming, we would be at somewhere around $80 billion worth of energy, and that's not as astronomical in comparison to what other entertainment industries are. So I think that as mobile gets bigger, that is half of it. But you still have to figure out how to put enough PCs in people's hands and enough consoles in people's hands at the end of the day. And that is a challenge that I don't think we're ready to overcome yet within the next decade. I really don't think that the hardware demand is going to get much larger as the devices in our hands get more and more capable. So is it going to be more microtransactions? Is it going to be more battle passes? Is it going to be... even at like 100% adoption rate around the world, you're still expecting over the next couple of years, so the next decade, we end up with 8 billion people on the planet. You're still asking for every person to pay over $12.50 on video games in order for that economic activity to be there.
Yeah, and this number is revenue, right? So yes, that's correct. As far as spending money and buying games and microtransactions.
That's a lot. I don't know what the average spending right now per person is, but I know that I spend more than that per month, not just year, on games. And it's down from what it used to be. Thanks to Game Pass. But if you just equate my entire PC purchase out over the past couple years, I'm a high-end user for sure. So if you get everyone up to $100 average, that seems pretty doable. But at what point do we tip over all the way and we say everybody games? Like, everyone watches movies.
I think not everyone watches movies. That's number one. But
true.
Number two, I think that you will kind of see this transition naturally, right? I mean, the younger the generation is, I think obviously gaming is more common, right? So it's just like internet versus print media, like we're seeing that shift now to the point now where there's a lot of print media that's gone out of business. It's just not as profitable as it once was, and it's harder to maintain that audience because it's a different generation. So I think that we'll see this shift naturally. I think the interesting thing is like when we start talking about like VR, I imagine a lot of VR games over the next, 25 years to be something in an industry that really explodes. It's still going to count towards gaming. I think developments like that are where you're going to see your money. Like obviously the microtransactions on the phone that allow anybody almost anywhere to be a gamer and do that. Sure. But I think like the shift to new tech as the younger generation comes, like is going to propel us to heights that we have not even thought of, honestly.
I like that. That's like kind of the Ready Player One answer to that, is that
I mean,
we haven't even seen the doors open to the world that we are going to know as gamers for the rest of our lives yet, because gaming is in its infancy in comparison to film, in comparison to books and plays and all these different forms of entertainment that we know. But in its infancy, the numbers stack up to the point where, what was it, like 40 billion versus the 165 billion was the revenue behind film, and like that's a pretty big discrepancy. There's something about video games that's inherently more attractive, is what it feels like. But I think the actual answer is something that I mentioned a few shows back, and I'm really worried about this, and I'm always curious to see where Mitch goes with this, because this is what he did for a long time. But with advertisers getting involved more and more, and we're seeing esports as kind of the door for advertisers to get involved, because we need eyeballs, because we built this off of a system that was eyeball driven, and sponsors love eyeballs, so they pay money to be in front of eyeballs.
Yeah.
How many eyeballs does Epic have?
Yeah, so I actually don't think advertising and sponsorship matters in this number, because we're talking about game revenue, right? So I guess maybe if you're thinking about it from the perspective of advertisers spending money to reach more people to like download their games or buy their microtransactions, then maybe is that where you're going?
No,
or were you thinking
no.
I'm along the lines of like monetizing inside of a game?
Inside of a game, I'm thinking that publisher would monetize the eyeballs that they have access to by putting ads in their game around whatever that would be.
So this is the 2K thing you brought
this
up, right?
This is the 2K thing. Yep. This is them playing Oculus commercials during their loading screens that you don't really have to sit through, because it doesn't take that long to load anymore. So when you have another source of economic energy collide with this, is where we're going to start to see that, like, two galaxies just colliding together, and that energy will be harnessed and used well by a lot of people, but it's going to be at the detriment of users, is what it feels like to me, and that's why I don't like it.
Yeah, I guess that revenue would count, I guess, right? I'm on the fence about whether or not it would. I'd have to see like how it was integrated before I'd be like, yeah, that counts or it doesn't, right?
If someone's paying Epic directly to put their skin of Deadpool in to promote the movie, that counts as Epic's revenue, right?
Yeah, again, like I guess you're right, and I think that's like the specter, right? Is advertisers coming and like they ruin everything, marketers ruin everything, and just they're gonna come in games and they're gonna ruin our games, right? So I guess I do agree that is a potential way we get to $1 trillion in game revenue in the near future. One interesting thing I think maybe you're discounting a little bit is I actually think that gaming is a little bit more mature than I think you're both kind of giving it credit for. In this study that we've been talking about, like they claim that 64% of U.S. adults are gamers, and that 70% of people under 18 regularly play video games. So like to me, we're talking about almost like 70% of people in America are kind of already gamers in some regard, right? So it's like almost like we're reaching this saturation point. And I actually think that where this gap between 100 trillion or 100 billion to trillion comes from is still in like the emerging markets and heavily driven in the mobile side, because I think the easiest way to grow that number is to get more people playing. The easiest way to do that is to go to places where people aren't playing. And I feel like the emerging markets still have a lot of growth, but I unfortunately don't have any numbers to look at as far as that. I guess we did have some numbers in the YouGov study we talked about a few weeks ago, but
yeah.
So I think the emerging markets are going to be a huge driver of this, but man, I think maybe you're right with your advertising comment. Actually,
I think it's both. I think it's hand in hand that mobile and advertisers drag us to the future that we're going to have of being attached to the Ready Player One VR device and living our lives in that world, because it's just going to be more efficient to do it that way, because our resources are going to be so strapped as we keep overpopulating our planet. But that's another 5-hour conversation for a couple different podcasts.
We'll have to put the deepfakes voice changers on for that podcast.
Yeah, dude. Deep fake, baby.
You got one of those, right, Steve? You got one of those nifty voice changers where you can.
Yeah. I don't know how to use it though, so.
I gotta
yeah?
get some lessons from Torben.
That's
Yeah.
it's a likely cover story. You don't know how to use it.
Yeah, I don't know how to use it.
That's funny. So one other thing I want to talk about here on this economic impact side. So one of the things it's very difficult. Actually, I learned something reading this. I'm not sure if you guys know this, but like the U.S. government doesn't actually have a code for video game industry, right? So basically, businesses are classified in different codes by like the Labor Bureau or whatever. So in order to do something like this, like calculating the impact of video games, it's actually kind of difficult. You have to make some assumptions. You have to look at like businesses that are coded in one way, and then in the case of like Microsoft, you have to like make a decision of like, well, how much of their revenue counts, because you don't get to claim all their Microsoft Office and software revenue as video game industry, right? But you certainly get to count their Xbox revenue. So there's all these assumptions that are baked into, right? And I found this number to be really interesting. The total number of like businesses that they actually kind of included in their sort of cohort, if you will. So Kyle, how many businesses do you think in the U.S. right now are in like video game sort of like space?
Oh my gosh,
Steve,
this number's gotta be.
I'll let you answer this too once you hear Kyle's number.
This number's got to be so big. Because, oh man, if you make money on the app store as a solo developer, you are technically having to register yourself as a business.
And again, this is probably not a perfect science, right?
Let's go with 25,000.
Okay.
Going high.
All right, I need the question repeated.
So okay, so we're calculating like the total economic impact of video games, right? So how many like businesses do you think make up the video game sector, if you will, like just total number of businesses that were included in this sort of projection? Kyle thinks 25K.
I'll double that at 50.
50K. So you're both really high, actually. So according to the Entertainment Software Association, those that run E3, fairly credible source, they've got just under 12,000 companies in this area.
Okay.
The more you know.
That is not as low as I thought it was going to be, actually.
TIL.
I was thinking like it was going to be somewhere around like 5 after I said the number out loud. I'm like, that's going to be really off, but that's a lot.
It's more than I thought, but it's less than I thought, right?
Considering that there's like 140,000-ish employees technically employed in the gaming industry based off of that number.
There's like directly employed is like 140,000. So it breaks down to like 12 and a half employees on average per company, which is, I don't know. I guess it seems low, but also it seems higher than it might be. I guess. And looking at 2017, just like 3 years ago, like that number was like 2,000 or 3,000, right? So like this number has grown substantially.
Holy smokes!
Yeah, right. So and it's again, maybe their methodology changed, right? Maybe the way they're calculating it changed, but there's massive growth. And I don't know. I thought 12,000 was a little low though. I was thinking more like 20K as well. But
no, 12 does sound low, but.
And a majority of those, maybe like the biggest chunk of those are developers and publishers, right? So like 50% is developers and publishers, and then kind of retail is like the second big employment bucket, and then hardware is like the next big employment bucket.
Huh? For how much economic force hardware has, that's incredible.
But I think there, like you can't count all of Intel's employees as working in the video game sector, right?
Yeah, but everybody in NVIDIA almost. Everyone at, I mean, I guess not everybody. Like, I'm so curious how they break this kind of stuff down.
Right? This is why it's so interesting. It's because they're kind of just making up their own methodology. It's not standardized.
Right.
Until the U.S. government starts to come in and track it all down to the penny for tax purposes properly, because the codes for video games for your taxes are going to be different than the codes for going and doing drywall. But
yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, when you file your taxes, you have to file your taxes for the type of work that you do.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
From like a income tax perspective.
Yeah, like as a business, if you were to track it that way. That way you could actually see all the numbers.
Yeah, I think we could use a little bit of cleaning up and modernizing in our government as a whole. I was just shocked to find out that we don't have a video game sector designation. Like it's all wrapped up under like computer software and like the one I was looking at is just really funny. It's like dolls and games or some shit. It's like what?
Yes.
Can we update this a little bit?
The one that I want to get away from is gambling. Gaming and gambling are always hand in hand. Whenever you go to like search for anything gaming, if you don't put video in quotes with gaming, you always end up with gambling of some sort.
See, what were you gonna say about my comment on
the class codes? Like,
Yeah.
it's the same. I mean, the list is a mile long. I've looked at them longer. I mean, among other things, I've had to do a little bit of this actually for DreamHack, and like trying to figure out what number you fall under is like.
I hope I don't get this wrong.
That one. I think what did we use last year? Okay, all right, that one. You know.
And then that official word, I think that's about our hour, gentlemen. Steve, thank you for joining us today and exposing all the deep, dark secrets of DreamHack and what you do there, and talking about some of the crazy economic energy that is the gaming industry and what we have to look forward to and that drive up to $1 trillion. We're going to get there someday. Big Daddy Apple's going to be bending the knee to the gaming industry is what Epic's hope is. So we got to get to that $1 trillion first before they keep growing. But thank you for joining us on another crazy episode of Theory Crafting. This was episode 8. We've lost Mitch. Thank you again to our beautiful sponsors, Blue Microphone, Aber Media, and ShotCall.gg for supporting this show. We couldn't do it without you. And until next week, which we may have another guest next week, tune in, find out. Let us know what you thought about this in the comments chat section below. And have a good week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.